for one. Not that he died or anything, but okay. Let's see if I can get that close. I need that just not too close, but just so check. Jim Collison, and we're live from Heartland Developer Conference 2017 here with John Weland. John, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you. First time we've met before, but first time I've gotten a chance to interview you. So welcome to the conference. Good to have you. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Deliver On, who you work for, those kinds of things. Let's get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, solution consultant with Deliver On, we started, back in 2006, and my passion has kind of always been around helping customers deliver software better in better ways, and so that ranges from technology to process to really measuring what are your impacts and outcomes, from each engagement that you have. And so Deliver On has been really formed around the concept that, consulting can be done in a much different way, right? Much more of an integrated partnership with clients. And I think when you put clients first in that discussion, it really changes, how you engage versus, just looking to try to get the next person placed or try to get the next gig set up. If you're really there to partner with them, I think it changes the way you approach it.
Yeah, software development is maturing in a lot of ways. That market is changing. How are you guys feeling that, and how are you responding to that?
So I think what's most interesting to us is that we see a lot of these companies who don't realize the rapid pace of change from a digital transformation perspective. And what ends up happening is some companies get to the point where they're like, oh, why are all these competitors now chipping away at what we used to do? And at first you don't see them as a threat. But over time, they start eroding enough of what you're doing away to where they don't have enough time to react. And so what we've been trying to do, especially from a DevOps standpoint, is helping companies understand, pull these teams together, pull these different disciplines together, and focus on driving outcomes and metrics with the software that they're creating. Because, like it or not, software is eating the world.
Yeah, it drives everything.
Yeah.
You mentioned the term DevOps.
Yeah.
And it's always a super interesting term to me. It gets thrown kind of around. How do you guys define DevOps?
Yeah. So we look at it from really 4 different perspectives. Number one, first and foremost, it's how do we measure, are we building the right software product, right? Because it starts there. And then how do I take that same software product and make sure that as I build it, I'm building that with quality and I have those checks in place. And then how do I deliver that to the market faster? And so, back when Agile was first popular, it was getting developers and the business teams working together more closely to make sure we were building the right thing from a business perspective. Well, as teams matured and started to grow, then it was like, how do I build the quality in the software? DevOps is taking those things we learned from that and really focused on how do I deliver software better and faster, and how do I incorporate customer feedback into that process?
Yeah, how are you finding, I never thought in a million years I'd say this, but Microsoft is actually doing a great job of listening to their customers right now. How are you guys finding you get the best kind of feedback from your customers?
Yeah, so a couple of different ways. I mean, we have, from a Deliver On perspective, we have a very integrated model. So customers have full transparency. When we're doing a project and an engagement with them, they are involved in the process. So it's full transparency. They see hours, they see status, they see all of that that's taking place. And frankly, we work best when we work as an integrated team model with our customers and with our team. So that's always been kind of core to what we do. I think from a customer standpoint, as they build their software, the nice thing is a lot of the customers, especially around this area, have a really good, loyal customer base. So they're able to put software out there and start incorporating the customers in that discussion. And I think that's a real big benefit, because then they learn what they're wanting, what software, as they produce it, is meeting the need that they have. Yeah. And so I think leveraging those relationships has been very key for them.
So on the surface, that all sounds great, but how are you physically finding, in the world of, in the days of Twitter and Facebook, and where are you finding you're getting the best quality feedback from those, from your customers and then from your customers' customers?
Right. So two perspectives on that. One is from our customers. We have weekly status meetings. We send out weekly status reports, but then again, they're involved in that prioritization and definition process. So they're working with us in a very agile fashion. And so rather than waiting until there's a problem exists, we really focus on how do we mitigate those risks right away and work with them to mitigate it. So for us, feedback is built into the process. There is no separate feedback loop. It's part of what we do.
Sure.
So for us, it's a little bit different. But I think for customers, when they implement software, one of the things that's most interesting is they have new technologies now, cloud being one of them. There's instrumentation that we just get for free by building and deploying to the cloud. There's also very easy tools that even if you're on-prem, you can instrument your applications that exist today and feed that data out to Azure and start collecting to figure out user behavior, figure out who's hitting the site, how long are they staying in these processes, are we actually making a difference to what they're doing?
It's like you read my mind, because I was going to ask about Azure. They've been making big promises about that, especially in kind of AI and machine learning. And are you finding, are there things where you can take advantage of that today where it's ready to go? And what kind of successes have you been having?
Yeah, so we had a company that we worked with in the healthcare space. And their goal was they need to build an application that helps facilitate when a doctor sits down with a patient, facilitate that process in a much different way. And part of the solution to that was software. And it wasn't software in that it's just, here's a bunch of data, go parse it, figure it out. I mean, a lot of folks in healthcare realize that some of the systems, EMRs, EHRs out there, older UIs, older, interfaces, they're pretty much transactional systems. We were able to work with them, as well as with one of the design companies we work with, to put together a application and a design to basically incorporate some of that machine learning to where we can go out and now make our application smarter based on the things that we did in the past. So if I treated you for this condition, did it actually have the outcome that I expected? And if it didn't, what are we doing to correct that? So it starts to learn over time and can actually provide you suggestions as far as what to do different next time.
Any predictive indicators in there as well? In other words, if this person's been in twice for the same thing or 3 times, that we begin to see maybe some preventative pieces start to come out to try and slow that down?
Yeah, even going to the perspective of saying you have demographics, of a person, their past history, and medical treatments, to be able to look at it and say, how do I not only predict what things this person may have, but then how do I reduce that clinical variance, right, that takes place with that patient as I treat them over time, so that I find out what are the best pathways for treating patients, rather than just trying to have what I think might work. Really look at it over time and then start being able to put plans together to help head off some of that.
A year ago, I think we talked with you guys about some virtual reality HoloLens. I think you guys I've seen you guys sporting a HoloLens. Have you made any progress on that? Is it, that seems like it'd be a tough project to get, or a tough product to get traction on right now, but what kind of success have you guys had with that?
So HoloLens is something we've always been interested in. Not only is it just cool, but we got invited to the early adopters program for that. So we've had them for now, I think, over 2 years. Whenever they first released them.
Yeah, I think it's crazy to think it's been that long. And a whole new family of them is coming out. They're not HoloLens, but they're
VR headsets.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we've actually built a couple apps internally for this, but we're really working with customers. I think the biggest thing is education, figuring out how do I best apply this in this situation. And so there's a couple of companies that we've been in discussions with on this. A lot of them, of course, are NDA, but they're doing some pretty cool things with it, and we've been collaborating on a couple of those.
So you'd say you're still pretty bullish on HoloLens at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think the technology itself is far ahead. What Microsoft has produced with HoloLens and this mixed reality, because again, it is integrating directly with the physical world. They have, I feel like, so far ahead of where everybody else is at, which is basic augmented reality, that it's really changed the game. And I think companies are trying to wrap their head around, how do I do this? I mean, you see a lot of the demos from, how they can use it for training. One of the best ones I saw at WPC last year was they're using HoloLens to train folks that service airplane engines. So they can literally bring down an image of the entire engine, and people can work on that literally just by putting on the glasses. And I think that's so impactful, because now I don't have to have $1 million jet engine sitting in here that I teach somebody. I can explore it, I can shrink it, I can move into it, I can see what the different parts are. And so it's starting to really transform, I think, industries in a different way.
Yeah, I think last year when we talked about it with you guys, we talked about, knowing the schematics inside this building,
Yes.
and knowing inside that wall exactly where the pipes are, and being able to see them in real time, so that someone working in the building isn't cutting through an electrical system, or those kind of. In some ways, it's X-ray vision. Not really, but it could be, because we know the underlying data behind it, as long as it's accurate.
It was funny. We're interviewing contractors to finish our basement. And I'm sitting there, and he's describing, okay, we could do this over here, we do this over here. And I was mostly paying attention, but I was thinking about what a great application to be able to say, put this on, this is what it looks like.
Yeah, together.
Exactly.
Together.
You're walking through it, walking through it. But anyway.
Yeah, I just picked up a new pair of Bose, the Quiet Comforts for travel. And their app is really cool, because you can pair 2 sets of headsets together. You can pair them to the same device and play the same music. And so kind of in this virtual reality world, to be able to put these on and then pair them, so it's the same. I can run the same whatever to them. That could be a very, very powerful. And even you could even do that in an augmented way on a phone device, where you're scanning and doing it. But how powerful could that be in a virtual world?
If I can walk through the wall, and I can walk through these different things that sit inside of the room. I mean, it really does bring that capability of design to the physical world.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think we're in the early stages of it, and I say that a lot. Well,
software is, to your point earlier, software has really changed. The way that we consume software is much different than it has been in the past.
Yeah,
it used to be, hey, here's a software release every 6 months, every year. You'd install it, you'd work through the issues, and then you'd be good for a while. But it's changed consulting.
Yeah,
it used to be, hey, get up to speed on BizTalk 2010 or SQL Server 2012, right? And you get up to speed, you learn to be an expert at it. But today, these capabilities are being released daily.
I know.
Daily.
Yeah.
Amazon releases every 11.6 seconds.
Yeah.
Production. That's 5 times a minute.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And I think there'll be a day of software fixing itself, and some self-healing and some self-development as it sees. I think the future of UX and UI is actually a self-adapting. Right. In other words, so you guys write a framework.
Yep.
As I use the app, it begins to adapt to me, and that's code being written in real time to be able to do that for me.
Well, just look what happened in the infrastructure side of things. Cloud has now created an environment where we can provision globally redundant applications and solutions literally through code.
Yeah, or spin
up.
up.
You can't even talk about that on premise.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing.
It's a great world, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're right. I get super excited about it. Sometimes I wish I was 20 years younger. I think I grew up what will be called the greatest generation, I think, because we invented the PC. And but there's just some great stuff that's going on.
Cool.
In your session, what did you hope, you and Audrey, Audrey, what did you guys hope? What was the one big point you're hoping people would walk away with?
The big point we wanted people to walk away with, is that the way software is being developed today has changed, and it is changing. And to stay competitive in the market, you have to look at things from the standpoint of customers are driving products, and to truly make sure you're building the right product, you have to pull design into this DevOps model, and they have to work sitting down side by side with the people actually writing the code. They need to work closely together, because to make sure you're building the right product and you're doing it very quickly and getting customer feedback, that loop has to be there. Everybody talks about DevOps and says, oh, it's dev and operations. That's true. But operations traditionally was that last mile. You have to pull in the first mile to this, which is
so because design. You're saying that, you're assuming design, where has design been in the process?
So I think for some companies, not all obviously, is design has sat outside of that, right? They, in some cases, have produced, brilliant work. Great wireframes, great, CSS and HTML, and they hand it to the teams, they go build it. The developers are saying, well, why would I do it this way? I can do it this way better. Well, then you get into this cycle of, well, I want to do it this way. I know the product design said do it this way. So you get out of the deliverables business from a design standpoint and get much more of an integrated model. That's really the main message.
So you mean if I'm building a house, the designer doesn't write the specs, walk away, and come back to the housewarming party.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
And then goes, this isn't at all what I thought.
Right. Yeah. You know? Well, and Audrey told a really good story. You know, one of the projects they were involved with, they had a really great refactor of a design, but because the engineering team wasn't involved with it, when they were brought in and to do the specs for it, they fell down. Who gets blamed in that?
Yeah,
the design group.
Right.
So I think it really highlights, you know, how those two need to work together.
Are there ops processes that have to be different then to keep that? Because sometimes it can be a lot of chatter in that model, right? We can get a lot of just talking, and we have a lot of meetings. So in what you've seen, what's the right way, or what's the model you guys are using to kind of communicate that or have that cycle work?
Well, and I think, so the other perspective is you have to look at product design not as something that you just do up front and hand it over, as more of an emergent process. So what that means is we're going to break down smaller chunks of work, and we're going to do lower fidelity designs to prove, is this even what anybody wants, right? And so then that process starts to evolve as we get better and better feedback. By the time we're actually ready, it's in front of customers, we know exactly what they're looking for. And then once it's out there, learn from their behavior. So that model, I think, bringing them closer together in that team structure, you're working right with the people who are helping create the design and leverage creativity across the team.
Okay. And that sounds a lot like Agile, right?
It does.
I mean, and so how different it's what you're really talking about is just making sure we're keeping that design element in the loop through the Agile process. Earlier returns faster so that you can, fail faster, right? Is the idea. Fail faster so we get to what we're looking for, and then once we've got it, then roll forward quickly with development to get it out and deployed.
Bring the batch size down.
Yeah.
Don't create these massive feature that we don't know if anybody's going to use. Batch size is smaller. Incrementally, iteratively roll this out and figure out, does customers want this?
Yeah. No. Right on. Right on. Good session. Get any crazy questions at the end?
No, the two questions we typically get from, I would just say even a DevOps discussion, right, is how many people do I need to have from designers, or how many operations folks need to be sitting there? We really try to stress, it's not so much about the number of people, it's making sure that the team has the capabilities they need to take ideas to production. That's one. The other one is always, was this a Scrum process? Was this Kanban? Or which one works better? And so much about Agile is a maturity, right? That's where we really see DevOps as an evolution. You get to figuring out how to work iteratively, and then you become a high-performing team, and then you're like, okay, now we're ready to actually really engage our customer feedback loops by deploying software. Yeah,
it's always a challenge. I think communication is always is the key to everything. You can have all the greatest processes if you don't have stability and hope and trust in those teams. It's just not going to work no matter what you do.
And frankly, like we said earlier, technology is the easy part. It's the people and the culture that are the hard part, because you're letting go of things that you used to do. I don't measure myself now on how good of code did I write or how many test cases did I create. We're measuring our success as a team on customer experience. And that's a shift. And that means a lot of impact from culturals.
Right. And that's good. I think we got to get to that point where our outcomes are meaningful, like, just meaningful impact. What's it doing for the customer, and what are their measurables to make sure they're meeting their goals?
And how do you measure them?
Well, you spend 4 hours sharpening your axe before you cut down that tree, right? You spend a lot of time planning on it. So, John, thanks for coming out. Good to catch up with you guys. And it always seems like DeliverOn is across from us at every event we go to. Good to keep up with things that are going on. You guys have a lot of stuff on your board over there, and you're in a lot of spaces. I'm particularly excited what's going on in the Azure space, and I think I think Azure's still too hard for the average person.
It's changing fast.
Good. Sure. Yeah. Well, it's getting more complicated at the same time. There's tons of stuff involved. Although just last night on the way home on a plane, I was able to upload an audio file, find the media service indexer, get it indexing, and have it ready by the time I got home. Nice. And you're like, okay, it was a few YouTube videos, but I got there. And I think, all right, this isn't. And one of the videos was old. It's like, okay, this isn't too bad. I think we can get there. So, well, this will be our last interview for the day. If you're watching live, and there's a few of you out there who are, we'll be back tomorrow, same page, and we'll have all the videos going. John, thanks again. I appreciate it. And we'll see you tomorrow.